This is Emma. She's an artist who lives and works in the southwest of England. This is the house where she grew up and developed her love of nature, among the winds and the flowers and the hares in the garden. This is Molly, her canine companion. Em likes to think that she's half cat and a quarter ferret. And this is Grettle, the two-wheeled love of her life that took her across the world and back on an epic adventure.
Can I see how it looks?
Absolutely.
Em's always been incredibly bold. I would say she really has no fear.
She's pretty out there.
She was quite a worry, but she loved the thrill ever since she was tiny. She was a most unusual child.
When I was about 5 years old, my mum said I ran and I leapt into a swimming pool.
She was only about 2 or 3. I had no idea how to swim.
And I got a massive kick out of it. I'm still the same now. I love that.
She's got a naivety about her, which it's almost, she doesn't see danger. She wouldn't mind me saying that, I don't think.
And she's a real character, an individual. She does things as she exactly wants to do them.
What I love the most is living in the moment. My biggest struggle is when I'm not in the moment and I wonder what to do.
When I first met Emma, she turned up on a little bashed-about Vespa, a little ET4, which I later found out was called Grettle.
Grettle's my ticket to new places.
She brought it down here. She was so proud of Grettle.
Like Emma, it's a character, isn't it?
I love the curves, the shapes. I think aesthetically they're amazing.
It's almost comical in a way that you have this little tiny green Vespa.
Grettle lived in various battle scars, bit of painting.
But so Greta herself has a personality that's, you know, very similar to Em's.
But having got on Grettle and started riding, I found it impossible to stop. You just felt on top of the world, to be honest.
Grettle doesn't go very fast. She can't go very far, I thought.
Yeah, it was a shock when she said she was going, you know, the journey she was going to do. And then when she told me where, I just couldn't believe it.
So I travelled from UK to Mongolia. Had the most insane drive along the Silk Road.
We were completely against it.
A lot of people would think it wasn't the right bike, but it was, because the way they're built, they're a monocoque chassis, so it's all metal. The tyres are interchangeable front and back. It's a 4-stroke engine. They're quite robust and they're reliable. I don't think she realised that it was probably almost the perfect choice.
I love not knowing who I'll meet, where I'll sleep, what will happen that day. I thought it was all possible and I was excited by the challenge.
I just knew it could do it. You just know in your mind, if you look after them, they'll keep going. And off she went.
What were the places you visited?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to remember. If I could see a map. So I went from England to France, Belgium to Holland, Germany, then Austria, Slovenia, over the Dolomite Mountains, down into Croatia, Montenegro, Albania, Greece, Turkey, Georgia, then Azerbaijan. Oh no, wait, I missed out actually. So after Azerbaijan, boarded a cargo ship across the Caspian Sea to Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. Then I went back into Kazakhstan, then over the Altai Mountains in Russia, down into western Mongolia, and then all the way across Mongolia to Ulaanbaatar. And then I came back a different route. I came back through Siberia, the whole length of Russia, to Latvia, then Lithuania, came through Poland, the Czech Republic, after the Czech Republic into Austria, then Italy, then France, and back to the UK. I think it was about 30,000 kilometers, give or take a bit. As soon as I was on the road, all of those kind of slightly stressful bits, if you got this, if you got that, saying goodbye, and that all disappeared and the trip had begun. I think travelling by Vespa with nothing basically between you and the landscape is unlike travelling in any other vehicle, to be honest. And I love nature. I've always loved a lot of wind. I'm like one of those dogs that put their heads out the windows. And I think that sense of having nothing between you and anything else is just so freeing. Yeah, I don't think there's any other, for me, no better way to see it. One of the absolute highlights has to be, it was in Tajikistan on the Pamir highway. I'd got through the Wakhan corridor, which is the sort of panhandle of Afghanistan. They call it the roof of the world. And everyone had told me, like, you cannot take a Vespa down there. There were landslides, it was pretty rough going. And at one point, there was such a huge landslide that everyone had got stuck. The road had been completely closed off for quite a few days. But amusingly, Grettle was the only vehicle that could cross. She was small and light enough that everyone grouped together, all the local kids. And we all heaved and carried and pushed and pulled Grettle over this mountain. We had to build her bridges out of rocks and get her across ravines. She was greeted with a round of applause from everyone that had been watching for hours. And then suddenly we were off again. So while I was in Mongolia, I adopted an adorable street dog called Molly. I thought I was going to be in Mongolia for a while, so I looked to adopt, and there was Molly looking incredibly sorry for herself with a terrible neck injury. So I took her home with me. I then had to teach her how to jump on the bike. Hold on, Mo. She took to the Vespa straight away. As soon as she hears the ignition go, she'll leap on the back seat, and I can see her in my wing mirror, sort of ears out, looking out over the view. I think she feels really comfortable on the back, which is amusing, actually, because she gets incredibly car sick. But put her on the back of a Vespa, and she's grand. So I hadn't expected, actually, to be coming back home at all. The original plan was to carry on east. The return journey was pretty much a beeline back from Mongolia to the UK in time for my brother's wedding. But I came back through Siberia, and I only had a 30-day visa for Russia, so it really meant there was no room for error. As soon as I crossed the channel into England, I knew I'd made it. Coming up the garden path, I hooted Gretel's little horn and was met by my family and my brother. I got there in time for the wedding. And yeah, I just couldn't believe I'd managed to get this little street dog back home with me, all in one piece, and Grettle. Even thinking about it now sort of gives me butterflies. So this chapter in my life has got to be the most obscure and unexpected one, to be honest. Baking was totally unexpected. It was so inventive and creative, and there's so much about baking I have no idea about. And then it just developed into full-scale baking and sculpture cakes. And yeah, now I got a little cafe in the park, which is great. So the whole idea of the cafe was to meet people. And I just felt I hadn't met anyone for a long time, and post-travels, that was a massive shift. And it's done exactly that. It's been great. But there's nothing that quite parallels the travel and the open road.
Do you guys want to see it? While Emma was away, the local, the weekly Motorcycle News, I basically got the cutting from it and I kept it. I keep this in the shop because of, well, basically I'm so proud of what she did.
Well, the fact she went all the way on a Vespa bike to Mongolia, I can't think of anyone I know who's done that.
Especially solo, with a single Vespa and a little dog.
And it was fulfilling for her. It was fantastically fulfilling. Every day she had to pitch her wits against adversity.
If you think about all the what-ifs and the stuff that could go wrong, you'd never ever go on a trip like that. Whether it's baking, whether it's art, whether it's travel, whether you've got this massive problem to sort out. There's absolutely always a way to sort it. And the joy of it is in the journey, not really the destination. Molly and Grettle are my two girls, so yeah, I think together we sort of conquer the world.